David Bara, member of Catalyst 2030 and the co-founder of WeAccess Ltd, a certified social enterprise and an educator. Let me welcome you all. Mr. David Bara, over to you, sir.
Hi. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going to keep the talk relatively short, and I'm going to explain, I'm going to be talking about safeguarding young people with disabilities. I'm sorry to bombard you with some numbers at the moment, but just to give you a scale of the issue, according to a recent UNICEF report, there are nearly 240 million children with disabilities around the world. Now, this is the UNICEF's most comprehensive report. What you need to factor in is that it's probably an underreporting, because there are many societies or cultures that actually won't necessarily report that their children have disabilities. Now, this particular report talks about the deprivation of children with these disabilities, and 1 in children with disabilities around the world will experience some form of issue. And I'm going to, sorry to come out with it, but I'm going to come up with some numbers because this directly relates to safeguarding. Right, so 25% of children with disabilities are less likely to receive early stimulation and a response and care. 25% are less likely to attend early childhood education. 16% of disabled children are less likely to read or be read to at home. 42% are less likely to have a foundation in reading. 47% have never attended schools, and the list goes on. One number that I need to highlight, or 2 numbers I need to highlight, are 32% are more likely to experience severe corporal punishment, and 41% are more likely to feel discriminated against. Now, what you need to bear in mind with all of these figures is it's all about safeguarding children. If children with disabilities aren't getting a good quality education or receiving any form of education, they don't have the ability and facility to communicate, understand, and respond and move forwards. So overall, their quality of life is going to be substantially reduced, as are their parents as well. If you take into consideration, for example, their lack of ability to read, that means that, again, they're more likely to have issues to do with taking medication. They might take the wrong medication. They might be told certain information by what they appear to be trusted adults, but then unfortunately, then they potentially would then get abused. Now, again, I'm going to come up with some figures. Disabled women and girls are arguably the most vulnerable, and there's a high chance of them being abused at home. One statistic, and this comes from the States, it's that more than 90% of people with developmental disability will experience sexual abuse in their lives. And 49% will experience abuse at least 10 times. What we all at this conference need to bear in mind is that COVID-19 has made the situation even worse. It's exacerbated the situation. So that 90% is just going to go up. That 49% is just going to go up. The numbers, pardon me for saying so, are horrendous now. Now, what we need to take into consideration is what makes them vulnerable. It's people with disabilities, potentially, or cognitive disabilities. They're vulnerable because they might have a lack of understanding of what is right or wrong. They put their trust in adults who, as the first speaker, I believe, spoke about, was the amount of abuse within, let's say, schools and trusted adults. Partly this is a lack of education, a lack of understanding, and critically, from the WeAccess perspective and the work that we're doing, it's a lack of the ability to receive receptive and expressive communication. In other words, are the children actually able to express exactly how they're feeling and receive the information to learn what's right or wrong, and what is right that should happen to them and what's wrong. And that that comes from family values. There was a former speaker who I mean, it shocks me, to be honest about it, who said about a father that gave, I believe, his son a mobile phone, and then, if I haven't got this wrong, abused his daughter. So again, it's setting those family values. Now, that was in the family. And if you then look at children with disabilities, the situation gets even worse. There's, amongst, again, people with disabilities, you've got the physical ability to defend themselves. So in other words, do these children have the physical strength to defend themselves against the abuse, both physical, verbal, and do they have also, can they go to safe spaces? Again, it was brought up, I believe, by the first speaker. Now, I'm going to go on. I'm terribly sorry about this is doom and gloom kind of thing, but it's also the ability to communicate what a person does and doesn't do. And it's I mean, in England, we're going through the issue of the police believing women who have been raped. And there have been recent cases in the news where a lady was given a date rape drug. She went home to her husband, said that she felt that something had happened. They called the police, and the police didn't believe them. Also, a female police officer didn't believe them. Now, this is in England, and if this is happening in England, it's really happening in the rest of, it must be happening in the rest of the world, and it must be exacerbated. And we're in a good country, so to speak. I don't mean to be making judgments. Then what you need to look at is the social stigma and cultural stigma associated with people with disabilities. And I'm just going to pause for a second and I want everybody to reflect about the cultural and social stigma that happens within their own societies to do with people with disabilities. Now, there potentially, within people's societies, the children with disabilities might be viewed as cursed. It's karma. Another example is that deaf people, for example, might not have learned how to speak, and they might be viewed as less intelligent. I'm going to round this off, and what the reason for talking about this is to get people to think actually about the disabilities and about what's going on and what really needs to be done. And fundamentally, as has previously been said, it's education. It's making sure that the children are educated. They have the tools and the means to effectively communicate how they are feeling and learn how to communicate. And what the educators need to do is the education staff, the teaching professionals, anybody who works with children, they need to learn how to develop the children's confidence, the skills, the understanding, so the children know exactly what the right or wrongs are. They then need to then basically act as enablers to then give the children the tools, be it the verbal tools, the physical tools, the cues, so that everybody around is aware that the children are communicating a message when they feel safe, when they don't feel safe. Within the education system, there needs to be a comprehensive review of teaching children the rules of personal safety, and what is right or wrong, what is physically and socially acceptable. The children need to be also told how it links to laws. So for instance, if there is an issue with children's safety, and if something is happening, at least the children can say it's wrong because the police said it's wrong, or they need to be able to at least refer to something. It will make them stronger. There needs to be a comprehensive set of, if you think about, children with, if you think about children with cognitive issues, for instance, at the moment, I'm stuttering. Now, When I stutter, it could be nerves. So for instance, when we're working with children with special needs, or anybody with a disability, you need to think very, very carefully, are they truly absorbing the information? How are they effectively absorbing the information? And what we're doing at WeAccess is we're creating an education program which is essentially free, that anybody can see, and it's going to be teaching people the tools, or enabling people to learn how to work with the children in order to enable them to communicate effectively. Now, the way we're going to do it is not by dictating what should be done and how it should be done, but getting people to reflect on how they interact and what's culturally and socially acceptable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in the Facebook group. I'm going to finish off now, but I'm going to drop in the Facebook discussion links to work that we're doing, and it would be lovely if people would like to work with us, because we're really, really excited to be exploring programs with other people and to share what we're doing. But ultimately, the reason for this discussion was just to highlight the fact that people and children with disabilities ultimately are exceptionally vulnerable. So all of the issues that people are talking about, I mean, the previous speaker, sorry, and I will finish on this one, you can teach people about safety through play, through the toys that the previous speaker was talking about, is that the rights and wrongs through, for instance, if you've got a toy there, should we do this to a toy? And if we're not harming a toy, it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen to us. Those principles of play and respect, through play, you can teach the children how to protect themselves and have a set of value systems. I'm going to finish now. If anybody's got, I'm going to drop my details in the Facebook group. If anybody wants to contact me, please do, because I'd be excited to work with people. Thank you very, very much. It's been, the speakers are amazing. Thank you very much for inviting me. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Mr. David, for such great insights that you've shared with us today. We need to understand that children are not just passive bystanders in the world, and their physical and emotional well-being should be paramount in all actions taken into consideration. And thank you for emphasizing that protection and safety should mean empowerment, building resilience for children, especially the disabled ones, parents and professionals for that matter too. It was a great pleasure to listen to you and your wise words and learning so much from it. Thank you so much, Mr. David. Thank you so much. Now,